KNBR presents the senior producer of NFL films, Greg Cosell. Now here's Mr. T.
Arizona's 6 defensive backs in the field, and not Patrick Peterson, but they've got 4 safeties. Kaepernick on a shotgun spreads the field, takes the snap, standing in the pocket, throws a deep out to the near side, intercepted. This will be a pick 6 for Arizona. Justin Bethel, touchdown. Brutal!
Oh, no. Ray Ratto, Tom Tolver, Greg Cosell, senior producer, NFL Films, joins us courtesy of the Ring Central guest line. Well, Greg, last week when we talked to you...
You know what, Tom? I think Ray should just go tonight and start asking questions that I can't answer.
Okay. Maybe we should. I've got one. You got one.
Given the fact that Tyrann Mathieu is the latest of about 350 defensive players to explain after a game they won that they knew everything the other team was going to do when they came to the line of scrimmage. What did you see in yesterday's 49er Cardinal game that would either prove or disprove his claim?
Well, first of all, I think that those claims, which could well be true, I bet you could argue that about a lot of teams and about a lot of good teams. So I'm not sure how much stock I put in that. I don't think teams win in the NFL because the other team doesn't know what they're going to do. So I always think that sounds really bad for a coach, and it's an easy media point. But, I remember when, years and years ago, watching the Washington Redskins under Joe Gibbs. Wouldn't you consider Joe Gibbs one of the all-time really good coaches?
He was okay.
They had like 3 running plays, right? They had like 3 running plays. So, that stuff I think sounds really good. I don't know what it means because really good teams tend to do a lot of the same things over and over.
Well, because that was sort of my theory, because I've been hearing it more and more in the last year or so, and I almost think it's become like an interviewing point rather than actual acknowledgement that, hey, we figured out their offense on Wednesday, and we were yelling out their signals at them by, the second series of the game.
Yeah, look, there's no doubting that the 49ers, particularly, in the game yesterday, played really poorly. There's no getting around that, and we can discuss some of the specifics, but I don't know what that statement means. Those interceptions didn't occur because they knew the plays.
You think they might have had to do with a quarterback throwing off his back foot, not stepping into the throw, not releasing the ball early, and then on top of it, not throwing it to the outside shoulder?
Well, what I find really interesting when I look at Twitter, and we've been talking now for 2 or 3 years, so, you guys know that I've had questions about Kaepernick for quite some time.
Right.
And when I had those questions a year or so ago, because, he'd been coming off playoffs and Super Bowls, I was the one who was a complete moron. And now, and you know how I talk, I never say a guy stinks or he's bad. I do it in a critically analytical way. And now on my Twitter feed, all I get from people is, this guy stinks, I would get Tim Tebow in here, that kind of stuff.
I don't know if he stinks. He stunk yesterday. I mean, he was terrible yesterday. I don't know. When I look at him, and I told Ray this, Greg, that if he doesn't have a good running game, and this could be said for a lot of quarterbacks in the league, so it's not just Kaepernick, but I can't ever see giving him the ball 30, 35 times a game and say, you know what, you gotta win us a football game. I think he needs all the other components to be working, and it's the inconsistencies in his game. Minnesota, he looked really good. He moved around in the pocket a little bit. The head was up. I mean, he did a lot of things that I didn't see a lot of last year. But then Carlos Hyde ran for $160, and he had the running game, and things were going their way. They were ahead in that game. They weren't behind. I mean, everything was perfect. Maybe not perfect, but everything was going in his favor. The last 2 weeks, and I don't care what he did in the second half against Pittsburgh because everything changes. I really don't. The game was over at halftime the last 2 weeks. Now, is it offensive line a little bit? Absolutely. But I'm sorry, he's in his 5th year now. You can't throw it off your back foot. He threw it late. He didn't anticipate the route. The ball should have been gone before he threw it. And then he throws it on the wrong side of the receiver. He doesn't even throw it to the outside. He throws it to the inside. You can't do that your 5th year. You just can't.
Well, there's so many elements to what you're saying, and really, the first part, and it's probably too lengthy a discussion for now, is what goes into higher level quarterback play in the NFL. Because there's this sense that if you're a great athlete, and you have to define athlete, great athlete, the way most people think of athletes, with a really strong arm, that means you've got a world of talent. Mm-hmm. Well, in the NFL, those two things are somewhat part of being a really good quarterback, but kind of down the list. I mean, I believe in arm strength, okay, and Kaepernick clearly has a power arm, but there's no subtlety to the way he throws. He has no pace, no tempo to his throws. He drills the ball consistently. He's not a tempo thrower. So while he has a powerful arm, there's no refinement to the way he throws. And being a great athlete and being able to run fast in a straight line is, quite frankly, not really relevant to playing the quarterback position in the NFL. And I would argue that the interception that might have been the one that really speaks to some of the larger overview issues was actually the interception on the first play of the third quarter. Now, you can argue the game was over, but that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
They called a shot play where they wanted to get the ball deep, and Torrey Smith was wide open on the deep post. Now, Kaepernick, there was no pressure in the pocket whatsoever. He moved for no reason to his right, which disrupted the timing of the throw. Then he threw a flat pass with no trajectory, and because he moved, he threw it late. So he allowed the backside corner powers to get underneath the throw. So simple things like that, moving for no reason, throwing the ball too flat, things that might seem little in the overall scheme of things, these are the things that separate high-level quarterbacks, the players who do this right consistently.
And here's the thing, and you've seen a ton of this, but if somebody were to ask me, where does high-level quarterbacking start, I would say, in my opinion, most of it starts before the snap. Before the snap, you're ahead of the play, you see what they're trying to do, you anticipate what they're trying to do, and no matter what play you called and what progressions you're going through, you have a good understanding of where the opening is going to be. And then if you don't, you know where you're going next. I think all great athletes and specifically great quarterbacks most of the time find themselves ahead of the play. They're anticipating what's going to happen, and therefore they're ahead. I think guys like Kaepernick a lot and other quarterbacks in the league are in the play. And when you're in the play and you're not ahead of the play, it makes it really tough with the speed of the game to try to figure out what the hell you're doing because you haven't anticipated what's coming.
And at the end of the day, you could only control and manage and manipulate a quarterback so much in the NFL. Everybody says, well, if the run game would be effective. Well, yeah, of course. But you can't do that every single week. There'll be weeks you can do that, but then the weeks you can't do that, where your quarterback has to drop back. Now, even when you're running the ball well, guys, there will be third and long. Those plays happen in the game. So ultimately, in those situations, you have to develop the subtleties and refinements of playing quarterback in the pocket. And whether Colin Kaepernick will get there or not, we've discussed it. This conversation now seems raw because of the game that just happened.
We've only had it for 4 years.
But we've been having it for you're exactly right.
Absolutely.
So the problem is, as you said, Tom, is now he's in his fifth year, and some of the mistakes you just can't make. And there's no other way to say it. I mean, I said it all week long with Ron Jaworski. We've known each other for 25-plus years talking about quarterbacks, and there are certain things you just can't do if you're a veteran quarterback.
Among his contemporaries, is he further behind? I'm talking about like people, fifth, sixth year quarterbacks. Is he dramatically worse off? Is he making worse mistakes, or is he sort of middle of the pack here? I'm trying to...
Well, I think he's a certain kind of quarterback, Ray. You'd probably have to put him in the category, the way he plays and the things that he's asked to do, of the Cam Newtons, the Russell Wilsons, guys whose legs are technically an integral part of their game. It's difficult to put him in the category of the Tom Brady's. I don't think that those guys will ever be Tom Tom Brady in the way they play. So I think you have to put him in the category that sort of, there's 3 or 4 guys like that. Maybe I'm missing 1 or 2. I can't think of it right this second. But I think in that group right now, he's the bottom of that group. I think that Newton and Wilson who will do a lot of run by design, whose teams have a lot of multiple backfield actions and read option principles and all those things. I think right now of that group, Kaepernick is at the lower end.
I don't know if you're a needler or not, but you have to, as much time as you spend with Jaws, you have to be able to go, how's that Kaepernick greatest quarterback ever thing working out for you?
We've had that conversation.
Would you actually define it as a conversation, or simply a one-way call and no response?
And then he usually comes back to me with something like, don't break your arm patting yourself on the back. You know how it goes, Tom.
Exactly.
You know the locker room routine.
What has happened? What has happened to the secondary? I mean, how much of that is not getting the pass rush when they don't? The secondary doesn't hold up, and I know it all works in conjunction with one another. But I mean, they just the last 2 weeks they're just getting lit on fire.
Yeah, I thought, quite honestly, as I mentioned, I didn't think against Pittsburgh that it was as bad as it looked. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, they really had a hard time, and they had a hard time with certain routes that the Cards kept completing over and over, and you can probably see it in your mind's eye. It seemed it was an intermediate route breaking out so many times, whether it was Fitzgerald or John Brown, and they didn't get any kind of consistent pressure on Carson Palmer, and he's at the top of his game right now. He ate up the 49ers cover 3 defense when they played cover 3, which was a good number of snaps, consistently finding the voids at the intermediate levels. And the way Palmer's stroking right now, and you could see that, I'm sure you guys could notice that just watching the game, he's stroking it pretty good right now. If you don't get pressure on him, he's going to make those throws.
Okay, I guess this is the time for the unfair question. Which tape made you cringe more, the 49er tape or the Bears tape?
Well, I haven't watched the Bears tape yet, but I saw it.
Don't watch it, Greg. Don't watch it.
Well, it's funny. The 49ers, just because I've been watching every game for, going back, 4 or 5 years since we really started, doing this every week. And I could see where yesterday would be really disconcerting to fans because, you could look at the game against Pittsburgh, and like I said, I didn't think that was a terrible game, even though the score reflected it. Yesterday, the problem when you turn the ball over early, if you want to make a baseball analogy, it's if you have bad starting pitching and you're down 6-0 in the third inning, on a regular basis, your whole team looks terrible.
Yeah.
And when you turn the ball over like that, your whole team looks terrible.
Greg, as always, a pleasure. It's always good catching up with you, and we will look forward to doing it again next week, my friend.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Always a lot of fun, man.